Good day. I'm here with another episode of the Leading Conversation. I'm very lucky to have today former Springbok Sevens captain and current Springbok Sevens player Kyle Brown. Kyle, thanks very much. It's great to have you here.
Cheers. I feel like we should have this as a variation of the Leading Conversation mobile.
Yes, this is the selfie version
on the road.
The Leading Conversation on the road. When leadership worked for you, ...
When leadership worked for me is when I didn't have to lead anymore. Then it sounds very contradictory to what I think you're asking, but when it worked is when we've done enough work to build leaders around us, so that almost every player takes a leadership role in his position. So it doesn't have to carry a title of captain, of leadership group, of senior player. None of that. Just as somebody who wants to lead in their position.
You've spoken a lot about vulnerability and the importance of vulnerability, not only in a team environment, but specifically from a leadership point of view. Tell me about where you've displayed vulnerability and how it's helped.
Yeah, so I think the reason why I like vulnerability is because for me, it creates a depth of relationship, and relationship's the foundation of all teams. So we need to, me as a seen as a leader, I want to be seen to be vulnerable so that I can seem to be human also. And once people see that, then we can relate on a better level. I think the couple of occasions, maybe one or two with our sports psychologist that we used, was just chatting about my paralyzing sort of anxiety, fears, fear of failure, that kind of thing. And then just general, day-to-day chat, conversation in the team. It's not, so if a guy asks me, one of my mates asks me, how's my marriage going? It's, oh yeah, perfect, bro, perfect, 100%. Because that's shallow, that's, kind of fake, and I don't feel like I'm getting any real answers. I mean, if you speak to somebody and you're getting, absolutely nothing wrong in their life, he's probably talking nonsense. I think we all have problems day to day. And the first time that I really felt it was I came to training and spoke about something, I just popped it out of the table. I'm having a really tough time with at home with the relationship and everything. And one of my mates said, yes, me and my wife are fighting a lot. And these were the first couple of months after my marriage, and I was thinking, this is supposed to be perfect. You're supposed to be married. Everything's supposed to be 100%. And then he says, no, we fight. And I said, why don't you say something? I don't feel so crazy. I don't feel like we're going mad. And so that was it. Almost, you need to take that leap first. Sometimes you just need to take the leap, and you realize that all the problems that we have and these small things that we feel like vulnerabilities, that they're quite common amongst most of our teammates.
Cool. You mentioned about anxieties and fears.
Yeah.
What anxieties and fears have you got from a playing point of view and from a leading point of view?
Yeah, so I think for a great part of my career, it was like a near paralyzing fear of failure. I had like real problems with, and it would get more and more as the games got more and more intense. So, which is awful for a sevens tournament, because over the weekend you get more and more anxious because you play, pool game 1, 2, 3, then quarterfinal comes, then semi-final, and by the time the final gets, or even the semi-final, I'm so completely washed out because all my energy is expended on trying to calm myself down, try to stay in the right frame of mind. And, I just had this horrible fear of that, if I failed, and at that point it was kind of attached to who I was and my self-worth, and that if I failed, I wouldn't be much of a person. And subsequently, having dealt with that, it's eased up a hell of a lot. And, I constantly got these tools that I work with to remind myself of what's important in life and what's important to me as a person and as a player. I think new fears, we've got a really interesting place where we work, a really great setup of guys and a collection of guys. And, I suppose my most in my face fear is retirement at some point, and that's, as you hit 30, I think it sort of storms up on you. And what's going to happen life after rugby. I think that for me is something that I've got to start grappling with now and starting to figure out what's going to happen in the road after rugby.
It's so interesting for me. I mean, I've heard from some of your teammates who I'm working with currently describe you as the best leader they've ever played under. and your results speak for themselves. Yet you say you played with a paralyzing fear at times. And I think that would surprise some people.
And a great ability to hide it.
So just tell me a little bit more around your ability to still lead effectively and be managing / hiding your fear.
Firstly, that's really kind of them to say. I really appreciate that. We're quite lucky enough to have a really great collective of leaders. So it was never really just me alone. I think often we've got this picture of sort of the captain up on his pedestal. It's not like that. And for me, the new age team and environment is where you have a couple of leaders, and all be able to bounce ideas off each other. But sort of different from a very democratic team where you all together make the decision, which can be quite slow and cumbersome. You have quite an agile, dynamic decision-making collective. And so I think like I said, one way was to try to hide it, and I think the outlets that you use when you are stressed, if you can design your outlets that can be to the benefit of the team, then then maybe that anxiety is okay. So one of the things that I do when I get quite anxious is that I start talking a lot, not aggressively or not a stressful kind of chat. I often talk about game plan. What is our plan off the first kickoff? What are we doing going into the middle scrum type of pattern? And then I just start reciting game plan, and then that helps get people on the same page, but also helps calm me down. So I think maybe that was one of the things that I worked on, was to try get my conversation going when I'm stressful. When I'm quite relaxed, I actually go quite quiet. I'm chilled out. I'm ready to rock and roll. So sometimes when I get stressed, I actually, then I'm up walking around, stretching, chatting. What are we doing off the first kickoff? Let's chat about that first scrum here, right hand side of the field, and that kind of thing. And that helps me sort of, when I download that information, I realize that I am quite prepared for this and I'm quite ready for that. And maybe that's a little coping mechanism for myself.
Cool. Yeah, there's obviously a great amount of self-awareness that you've grown over the time, which leads me to my next question. Is there anything that you regret having done or having been, that if you could go back X amount of years and change it, you would?
Naturally, my major regret would be not enjoying my career a bit more. For the first couple, the first 60, 70% of my career, I lived with that fear of failure. So I very seldom got the opportunity to enjoy a job well done, and spent a lot of the time doing a job, then looking on to the next one and going, how do we do the next job? And then all of a sudden that anxiety just starts from the final whistle to the kickoff whistle of the next game. That whole time preparing my head, what am I doing? What are we going to do better? Which is, can be a good thing, but I think it's really necessary to take a couple moments to reflect on what's just happened, and look at it and sort of, just spend that time. I mean, in essence, that's what we're there for, to go out there, to do a job, to enjoy yourself doing that job, and to share those kind of memories with those around you.
And now that you've got you've released the captain's armband, are you finding you're able to enjoy it a bit more?
In actual fact, I was able, after having dealt with Doc Yanni Botha, he was our sports psychologist at the time, and he was able to release that anxiety a bit from me and help me realize what was important. For me, it was just a priorities thing. For me, the win was absolutely everything, and the love of those around me came like second, and friendship came third, and then as you start removing the weight of that, you must win. It slides down the priorities list, and you realize that whatever happens in front of you right now, life's not going to change that much. In 5-6 years from now, not too many people are going to remember my rugby career as I was a rugby player, but they're not going to remember each individual match, what happened there. But as long as I can still be a good friend to people, as long as I can be a great husband to my wife and a good father to my kid, those are kind of the important things. And I think if you pay with the foundation of those, you find yourself just being a little bit more comfortable.
It's a question that is quite interesting, and with no specific team in mind, but I know you've been a part of quite a few setups in sporting South Africa. If you were to be used as a consultant on leadership in South African sporting entities, what would you look for, and what might you aim to do immediately?
Ooh. I think maybe one of the first things I look at is their strategy to grow more leaders. Like, funnily enough, I know you saying as a consultant coming in, and you know what, I think one of the cooler aims of a leader is to make himself redundant as quickly as possible. So, you know, the moment that I have people making decisions all over the place, then the burden is not just on one person. You know, the moment that the captain can distribute that kind of those leadership responsibilities evenly amongst his team, there's a lot more that he can do as a player himself. And yes, I think there are people out there that are capable, you know, broad shoulders that can take a lot on themselves, but different perspectives allow for different you know, attacks to different situations. So I think firstly, as a consultant, I think would be to go in and take a look, what are we doing to empower people as leaders, and to give those opportunities to express their leadership abilities. Because a lot of the times we look at a person at face value and say, it's not a leader. What do you know about that guy in the leadership role? What do you have any idea what he's capable of, and how he is able to lead people? Because, you know, in a lot of sports teams, a lot of sportsmen are confident people. Just naturally, they're confident people, and they walk around confidently. And you know, and sometimes the opposite is true. They walk around very confidently, but they're actually incredibly insecure inside. You know, so you see somebody walking around with this, you know, this massive bubble around him, and you think, sure, there's a leader right there. You throw him to the deep end of leadership, and he completely melts down because he's not even confident in himself. So I think to try create as many opportunities for people to express their leadership ability will show you. I mean, also you have to be tolerant of what's going to happen. You know, so because you're trialing things, you might not get the perfect result every time, but you've got to be tolerant of that.
We've gone Kyle to leadership. I want to end on Kyle. You've been out for quite some time, and you're going to run out in a tournament hopefully in a couple of months' time. What are you going to be thinking just before you run out?
Just to absolutely enjoy every moment, because I know that this is a real cliche, that it gets taken away, you know, quicker than you even realize, but it does, man. Like, it's career just, you know, whistled by. I think the first time we worked together was maybe 2010, 2011, and I mean, look, we're 7 years has disappeared. Almost done with a career now, and just to go out there and absolutely, you know, enjoy every moment. I think enjoyment is key. I think it's really undervalued. I think everybody wants to be precise, and they want the pursuit of excellence, and they want to be perfect. But, you know, along the way, they often forget to just have a good time. You know? I think, you know, I just want to, I think, you know, hopefully when I'm most comfortable out there, when I'm enjoying myself, that I'll get the best out of my performance.
Carl, thanks so much. We really enjoyed your time, and look forward to next time.
Thanks,
cool. Thanks,